Hello and welcome to the second episode of the first season of the NASCAR Extreme Wreckfest Series Championship. And if you have no idea what that is, then I would highly suggest that you go and click the link on the top right of the screen right about now and get yourself all caught up. Before we get into the next event, I would like to remind you of the point standings following the ending of the first event. I am looking into adding more stats to this page, but if you guys have any particular suggestions, feel free to leave those down in the comments below and I will try my best to add them in the next video and or next season if it's too late for me to add them now. Unfortunately, after last week, we did have to fire Keemstar after giving the command for unknown circumstances. But fortunately, this week we do have NASCAR legend Tony Stewart here to give us a bit of advice on what kind of track we should be racing at next.
So that's going to be my vote next week, is that we make it a figure eight, and or we can go stop at the halfway, make a break, and turn around, go backwards the rest of the way. And then with 10 to go, we'll split the field in half, and half of them can go the regular direction, and half of them can go backwards.
Well, Tony, this is about as close as we're going to get to that at Big Valley Speedway. This track has so many ovals that all of the NASCAR drivers are going to be perfectly at home. It has a small oval, a big oval, another oval with two ovals inside of it, and it's even got that figure eight that Tony Stewart's been clamoring for his entire life. We really should invite that guy to participate in the second season. So we're actually going to go ahead and start off with the figure eight raceway, 4 laps, so that Tony Stewart doesn't have to wait any longer. And right away you can see that everybody's getting their elbows out. There's not a whole lot of room on this track, so that is probably to be expected. All things considered, it was actually a pretty clean start for a figure eight race. But then we're going to run across our old friend Brad Keselowski and shove him out of the way just to remind him that we are best friends and that we're going to continue to do so for as long as we meet. Unfortunately for us, karma has a strange way of working in this game, and just a few moments later, we're going to T-bone right into the side of Martin Truex Jr., probably ending his life in the process. Unfortunately, only having 1 lap left to go in the race doesn't really give us a whole lot of time to try and recover, but something interesting does still happen, and would you look at that? Kevin Harvick, the man in last place in points coming into the second event, actually pulls out a win, doing exactly what he needs to do if he wants any chance of actually winning this championship. Moving on to the second race, we're going to give that another try at the figure eight. You're going to notice William Byron actually started on pole for this race, the guy that is currently leading the championship, also the current sim racing legend in the NASCAR world, so apparently those skills actually transfer over to Wreckfest. Byron's actually just going to end up taking off and winning the race without any real competition, so we're going to go ahead and skip on to the third race. We have now switched over to the outer loop configuration for the next 2 races, so every driver should be perfectly comfortable in this environment as it's the closest to a standard NASCAR track. Starting position does mean a lot at this track, so those who start towards the front are more likely to actually win. And then for some reason Ryan Blaney tries to take me out but fails and takes himself out in the process. We're going to get a little bit squirrely in this fight for second place, so we're actually going to mount Alex Bowman. Welcome to the Discovery Channel, kids. Martin Truex Jr. is going to pull away for an easy win while myself and Joey Logano do get out for second place. We're actually going to run into Eric Almirola parked on the side of the road, and Kurt Busch decides that he wants to take Joey Logano out just to try and help me. And to make sure the job's fully completed, I actually choose to slam him in the wall just to assert dominance. Moving on to the next race, I just thought I would remind all of you that if you have any recommendations for tracks that should be added to the schedule, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. Lap 3, Joey Logano decides that he's going to try and take his chance at revenge for what happened in the previous race. Fortunately, we're going to manage to save the fishtail and continue moving forward towards our best friend Brad Keselowski. We're going to send it down deep on the inside of the final turn to try and get past Brad Keselowski for 3rd position. Meanwhile, William Byron's actually going to win yet another race. Don't forget that he was a championship leader coming into this event. Now for what is likely to be the most chaotic of the bunch, we have moved on to the outer oval with the loops. Immediately headed off into the first loop, you can see Kurt Busch is not going to respect his brakes and instead try and use me as his own, leading myself and many other drivers straight into the concrete barrier. We're then immediately going to drive into Chase Elliott, joining the dog pile as he's actually causing a major roadblock, forcing us all the way down into 16th position after just 1 turn. Down on the other end of the track, Eric Almirola is going to pull a Kurt Busch, once again using me in place of his brakes, causing me to be Austin powered in between Alex Bowman and Martin Truex Jr. Coming to the end of lap 2 and the start of lap 3, I actually forgot that this was Tony Stewart's dream track, and so cars would be coming in the opposite direction. So unexpectedly, I then run head-on into Ryan Blaney, the leader at the time, but shockingly enough, both of our cars were still running. Not running well, but running nonetheless, which actually means a lot at this track. Moving on, we're going to manage to evade Ryan Newman's tail whip, and then just a few seconds later we're going to use a dead carcass on the road to stop him dead in his tracks. Moving on to the next race, coming down to the first inner loop, Ryan Newman's going to choose to repay the favor just like everybody else, and just like that, we're going to end up head on into the concrete wall. Fast forward to another bumper handshake with our good friend Brad Keselowski. Clint Boyer is going to try his best to try and send us through a small little hole on the outside of the track, but instead on the exit of that corner, I'm then going to force him into Ryan Blaney, causing him to force Ryan Blaney to go up into the concrete barrier head on, ending his race. He's definitely not going to win 2 in a row. Coming out of the final inner loop on the final lap, me and Chase Elliott are side by side for second place with Kevin Harvick in the lead, but his lead is quickly dropping. You can see he's actually pushing a carcass along the road for some reason. He's really slow as both of us are beating and banging. We're actually going to ping pong off him, and Chase Elliott's going to get me at the line, and Kevin Harvick throws away a chance for his second victory of the season. Moving on to the next race, we actually have a 4-lap sprint race at the inner oval, and because this race is actually so short, we're going to do this without any cuts in the footage, and right away everybody's getting their shoulders out because there's not a whole lot of room on this, I believe, 1/8 mile in length oval. And just like that, you'll see Chase Elliott's in the lead, the guy that won the last race, along with Brad Keselowski, our best friend, right ahead of us. We're going to see what we can do about that. Unfortunately, in a 4-lap race, you don't really have a lot of time to make up any ground when you start behind these guys. But fortunately, because it is only 4 laps, we're not going to have to worry about lapped traffic. So heading off into turns 1 and 2 once again, we're actually going to try and get below Brad Keselowski, but we're going to get a bit bogged down trying to get the exit going. We're going to then get near his bumper, but not quite close enough to actually try and give him a bump and run. Coming across the line of the white flag, we're seeing that we're actually getting a lot closer to Chase Elliott, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have enough time to get there. Brad goes a little wide on exit of 2, so we're going to have a chance to go and dive it deep into the final corner. Not a whole lot of room for error here. We're going to get right alongside him, but we're going to get bogged down once again. So coming to the line, it's going to be side by side. Do we get our elbows out? We do. And in fact, we do take second place over the second race in a row. It is Chase Elliott in first position and myself in second. What a quick race that was. Moving on to the next race, we've upped the lap counter from 4 to 8 to allow for some lap traffic to come into play. We're going to get real friendly with Aric Almirola, who's going to slalom himself like a fish and then slam into the outside concrete barrier. Looking ahead, we actually see that Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski are once again running 1 and 2. Remember, Chase Elliott has already won the last 2 races in a row, so he's been going on quite an unprecedented tear this early in the season. Skipping ahead, we find ourselves in 3rd position behind Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski, and you can see that lap traffic is now beginning to play a part as Martin Truex Jr. actually makes contact with the leader, and Chase Elliott's going to lose the lead to our best friend Brad. And just like that, Chase's chances of getting 3 wins in a row might be over. Skipping ahead to the final lap, you can see that there is lap traffic all over the place, and heading into the final corner, it looks like Chase Elliott is not going to have enough time to catch up to Brad Keselowski. His entanglement with Martin Truex Jr. is going to cost him the three-peat, and because of who the winner is, you know that we have to send this down to Larry Mack.
Brad Keselowski won this race.
Moving ahead to the 9th race, we were once again back at Tony Stewart's favorite track because, like he said, we have not yet torn up quite enough cars and we're looking to cause as much carnage as possible. So as usual, because Brad's in front of us, we're going to give him another little friendly nudge as everybody else begins to dogpile into the very first inner loop. We once again find ourselves stuck behind both of the Busch brothers. You can recall this happened in the very first event, although in the opposite order. It'll be interesting to see if Kyle tries to defend his brother's win the same way that his brother tried to defend his. But do recall that even though Kurt did try to wreck me to keep Kyle in victory lane, Kyle did end up getting wrecked in the final corner. It doesn't look like it's going to be the case this time, however, as Kyle Busch is going to run head on into traffic. I have absolutely no idea who that was, but whoever it was, their head probably just ended up in Kyle's passenger seat. Unfortunately, the next few laps was basically just me trying to chase down Kurt Busch, but failing to do so. He was really quick, but then coming down to the line out of absolutely nowhere, Mr. Where Did He Come From himself, Kevin Harvick, straight up assassinates Kurt Busch, costing him the victory and giving it to none other than myself. What a sore loser Kevin Harvick must be. He must be so tired of being last place in points. Let's get a replay of that. And you can see probably just 100 feet from the finish line, Kevin Harvick takes away the victory out of Kurt Busch's hands. He had it dead to rights, and then all of a sudden he had Kevin Harvick's face implanted into his very own windshield. But we've already moved on to the 10th and final race of the second event, returning once again to the figure 8 configuration, and this time doing 8 laps, quite fitting if you ask me. Clint Boyer decides that he would like to body slam us into the outside wall, but we're going to retaliate and actually send him back up to the outside wall himself, head on. It was actually pretty interesting that both me and Aric Almirola were actually trading positions, using each other as a bodyguard whenever you go through the crossing section to try and keep each other from dying. But then right here you can see Clint Boyer is going to come out and clean out William Byron before making contact with herself, so unfortunately for William Byron, he did not have his own personal bodyguard. And then Kyle Busch is going to turn left into us for absolutely no reason. I have no idea why he would do that. My car is much bigger than his, so it's not going to turn out too well for him in the end. We do manage to keep our car running until the end, even with only 3 HP remaining. And Brad Keselowski once again will win this race. Unfortunately, Larry Mack has already gone to sleep, so we can't get him back in here. So instead, we're going to go ahead and display the updated point standings after Event 2 has completed. So you can see that I have wound up on top of the leaderboards after 2 events. That is kind of expected given all the races in this event were kind of favored towards any human driver over the AI, but we'll see if I'm able to keep that throughout the rest of the season. The big losers during the second event were clearly Clint Boyer and Martin Truex Jr., both of which dropping 7 positions in the standings. And of course, you'll love to see it, our best friend Brad Keselowski is right up there at the top with us. It'll be interesting to see if we can actually come up on top, or if our friendship will get between us. But that's all I have for this video. If you did enjoy and you've made it this far in the video, please feel free to leave a like and maybe even subscribe so you can be notified when future episodes come out. And if you do have any suggestions for future tracks to be raced in the series, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to read them. But until then, I will see you all in the next one.